and they kept coming. And finally, I started to pull my handgun to get them to comply. And all of a sudden, I hear behind me, out of roll, out of roll. And I turn around kind of with a questioning look on my face. And it turns out my training officer had set me up. These guys were
Ah,
friends of his gym. And he had set me up without telling me, and it really kind of scared me because I thought, man, if they would have kept coming, because they weren't listening at all, and they just kept coming until he said something. And if they had kept coming, I could have hurt one of them seriously. And, those were the type of things that just happened over and over. Well, the chief after that called in, and I walked in, and I kind of sitting in the office. I said, I kind of guess I'm out of a job, huh? He said, no, let's talk about that. And he asked me, he says, what was a good experience you had on your training? And I kind of looked at him and said, there weren't any. He said, well, tell me your best one. And I don't even remember what I said at the time, but I said something. And he kind of looked at me and said, that was your best experience? And yeah. And what he did was he took that officer out of the training program. He was no longer a training officer. And he told me, put me at a desk for a few months and let me go out on the street with officers anytime I wanted and get back in the swing of things. And after that, plenty of things happened during that time, and it showed what I could do. And they put me through the training program again, and I did well enough that they wanted to accelerate me. But because I had failed the first time, they wanted me to go through the entire thing for liability reasons. And I did. And then I was a solo officer after that.
got it. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to go through, and as you mentioned, that there's so many complexities involved that for an outsider like me, it would be very hard to fathom. And now, as you're sharing, you kind of get a glimpse into it. So, Glenn, as you move
Yeah,
through your life, tell us, any incidences that kind of stand out for you during your time.
there's a lot of them, actually. I read some statistics the other day, and it said the average civilian will go through a major traumatic event 3, maybe 4 times in their life. A police officer will go through over 800 traumatic events in a 20-year career. That's about one a week, and I think that's actually low. I've had guns pulled on me. I've had cars charging at me while I'm pulling the trigger to stop the driver from hitting me. I've gone through the door when shots are being fired at a house or two. But the worst ones are the ones that involve the kids.
Mm.
I'll get a little emotional when I share some of these, but I had.
Do you need a moment to get a glass of water?
No, I'm good. I'm good. One day it was a Saturday morning, about 6:30 in the morning. I came on shift at 6, and about 6:30 got a call of a missing child. And there was a young man. He was 2 years old, maybe 3, and his parents called him Little Houdini because they could not keep him in the house. They even added 2 extra locks on the door, and he still got out. He was missing. So the first thing we do is we search the house because most of the time kids are found in the house hiding somewhere, and he wasn't there. So now we talk to the parents. Okay, where does he like to go? Where's the nearest park that he likes? What's his favorite places? And so we started searching the complex. Well, as we had driven into this apartment complex, there was a fountain with a pond, and some teenagers had dumped soap suds in there the night before. And so there was probably 10, 15 feet high bubbles coming out of that and overflowing out on the pavement. I mean, they used a lot of soap. So kind of glanced at that, and we couldn't even see the water, couldn't see anything in there. And so we continued our search, and we searched for about 45 minutes. Couldn't find the young man. So we gathered there by that pond. And as we were standing there, a little breeze came up, and it's parted some of the bubbles just enough that we could see a foot floating on the water. And the young child, he was in the pond, and we pulled him out. I did CPR, handed him over to the fire department when they got there, and they took him up to the children's hospital, but he did not make it.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, those are the ones that hurt, especially when you have young kids of your own at home.
Mm-hmm.
Those things stay with you. And that was, I thank goodness I had a really good leader, lieutenant at that time, because he came over and he looked at me and he said, "You okay, brother?" He was from the South, so he had a little bit of an accent. And, "You okay, brother?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And I was actually, I usually just covered it up to that point. And said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Let's go." But that one hurt.
Yeah.
Still does.
I'm so
And
sorry.
anyway, he said, "Go take care of yourself." He said, "Don't worry about your report. Take care of yourself." And I went and sat in a church parking lot in the back corner for about an hour and just cried my eyes out. Then it was time to go back to work.
Yeah. No, that's really sad. It's so, can't even imagine, like, you being the bearer of the news and going and talking to parents. It's a lot to
Yeah,
bear, like you said.
that's the hard
800,
part.
yeah, 800 traumatic events. And so tell us a bit about your journey to becoming a detective.
From what?
I don't know what was your previous
Oh,
title.
becoming a detective? Yeah, that was an interesting. I was really still a brand new officer. I'd been on the street for about a year, maybe a year and a half, and all of a sudden I had 3 instances occur in 2 weeks that were all pretty major instances. And I was open enough that I was listening to, you can call it spirit or whatever you want, intuition, gut feeling, whatever. And everything I did worked. It was an amazing couple of weeks. I had the first case. I had a burglary. Um, Actually, yeah, the first case was a car theft from the high school, and the guy was running southbound in the city. All the officers coming north, they didn't see him, and that left the one option. He turned into a big field area and was hiding out there. So we were able to surround that area. Just found the car, sent in a dog, and they found him hiding in a hole under a tree in the mud. And that one of the captains was there, and he said, "Oh, good job." He says, "I didn't have to do anything. Take over. So you did good." About 3 days later, there was a burglary in progress, and it wasn't in my area, but it was near my area. And I knew that area pretty well. There were only 3 entrances to the subdivision. So I happened to be near one of them. I called out and sent a couple other officers to the other exits of the subdivision. And we started going in, and I kind of got lucky. This guy came out the one that I was at. But now he's in a car. He's not in the house anymore. And so now we have a chase going. And we went flying up this U-shaped street, probably inches to spare with cars parked there. And we ended up going up a canyon up near the ski resorts that are near the city I lived in or I worked in. And he went off on a side road and ended up chasing him down the mountain on foot and then down this 200-foot drop off with just huge rocks on it. And I ended up catching him in behind the ski resort. Ended up with 4 stitches in my knee going down those rocks, and our radios didn't work in the mountains then. And luckily, the town marshal for the ski area was watching me through binoculars and was on the landline in his office. And so he was telling my dispatch where we were because nobody knew where we were. And then one of the biggest ones of really listening to that gut feeling. there was a serious hit and run accident, and really bad injuries on the north part of the city. I was working the south side of the city, and the suspects left northbound. They took off. And I was walking into lunch with a couple of guys, and something told me, go out to the intersection where you're at. And I went, okay. So I went, got in my car. I went out the street, turned right, half block, there's a stoplight. And as I got to that stoplight, I looked up, and here came the suspect vehicle from my left. And they pulled in front of me, and I called out. I pulled them over, and I was hoping to heck they weren't going to run because I still had stitches in my knee. And the officers that backed me up were my chief of police and the lieutenant over detectives. And the chief kind of looked at me after we got them in custody, and he says, wow, you sure seem to be at the right place at the right time a lot lately. 2 weeks later, I was put into detectives. And that was an interesting journey. To be honest, I didn't have enough experience, and I probably should have had a couple more years before I got put in, but we did the best we could at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What an interesting journey and story. So, Glen, you do talk about getting PTSD and having bad relationships. You want to share a bit about that?
Yeah. After, like, things with the child and, having guns pulled and things like that, I developed PTSD over 26 years in the business, but it started early on. And back then it was, hey, suck it up, buttercup. I don't need any help. I can take care of everything. I can handle it. And we were great at handling everybody else's problems and great at handling all the other things out in the community. But we were not very good at taking care of ourselves. We didn't get it back then. And so I developed PTSD. I didn't want to worry my wife. I didn't want to scare her and have her worry about me at work. And so I just quit sharing. I quit talking. And anytime you quit talking in a relationship, that's the beginning of the end of the relationship. And I ended up divorced. There were a lot of contributing factors on both sides, but I can only look at what I did. I can only change what I did, and be self-accountable at looking back. I've learned from that. I tried it a second time, and I did the same thing because I did not learn the first time, and I ended up divorced twice. After the second divorce, I really started taking self-accountable look at how I was conducting myself, and I started changing some of the things that I did. I actually was living up in my cabin by myself. I drove 57 miles to work every day. Once I got up there, the nearest town was about 10 miles away. I kind of parked myself there, and I went through some tough times. Looking at myself was a good part, but I actually started drinking a little bit. In fact, every night. It was only 2 drinks, but they were 32 ounces each. And I was not feeling any pain at that point because I really didn't want either divorce. But that's what happened. And one night I woke up and I looked at myself and I said, what are you doing? So I started throwing my gym bag in the car, and I'd go to the gym on the way home and I'd run, or I'd go lift weights or whatever. And then I'd go home, shower, and get cleaned up, and I quit drinking. I started really taking a hard look at how I was conducting myself. And I opened up and I taught myself how to take a traumatic event and how to rephrase it so I can safely share it with a spouse. And I got lucky and met a wonderful lady. And we're married now. I've been married now for 6 years. And she knows everything about me. We have no secrets. In fact, she looks at my face and she says, what conversation are you having in your head? Who are you talking to? There are no secrets. And that's, she supported me on my journey, writing my book, and the things that I do now. And it's just amazing.
So tell us, you went from And as you mentioned about having two big drinks to putting that gym bag in your car. So there must have been a moment, or there must have been a series of moments when that shift happened. So what caused that shift?
I actually went through a training program, and the first thing we started talking about, and that's why I'm really huge on self accountability and the choices we make. Being in the moment is huge, because the past can't be changed. We can learn from it. The future
Mm-hmm.
hasn't happened yet, and it simply depends on what we do right now. And so every moment is a choice. And it's the positive choices that we make that create the positive events in the future. And that was one of the big lessons I got out of the training things that I went through. I did that for about a year. I went through some of those things, and just shifted the way I looked at the world. I wasn't looking at the problems anymore, other than the problems are simply learning experiences. And I shifted that and became much more positive, and I love it. Life is so much more enjoyable.
So I'm definitely a big proponent of mindfulness and awareness, because in the awareness comes the pause where you have the power to make a choice. Because if you're not even aware of what you're doing, then you cannot change yourself.
That is
A
so
lot of
true.
a lot of people are not aware of what they're doing, and they're doing the best they can in the given moment. So, from your experience, how would you say that people could cultivate that awareness of what they're doing?
It's kind of what I was in back in the day, was survival mode, and that's what many of us do in life, is simply survive and get by rather than flourish and grow. And it is a mindset. Let's say, start with being in the moment. If we're in the moment, we are focused on what we're doing right here, right now. If instead of worrying about the past and worrying about the future, I heard a statistic that um, people worry about the past about 40% of the time, and they worry about the future about 55% of the time. And in reality, end up spending 1 to 3% of their time right here, right now, which is what matters. And looking at my history, I would have to agree with that, because I was always worried about, okay, what am I going to do for the future? Am I going to get promoted? What do I need to do? Da 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 da. Guess what? Even that's all judged on what you do right now. And so that's the big thing, is just be aware of what you are right now and here, and then be positive. Um, I got rid of all the toxic people in my life, which really cut me down to about 2 or 3 friends. But since then, I have rebuilt friendships with new people who are very similar to the way I believe. And I now have a group of people that are just amazing people, and we pull each other up. We keep each other up. If something's going on, I know they're going to be there for me, and I will be there for them. And in the past, that always wasn't always the case.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, because that's what they say, that we are the sum or average of five people that we surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
And it's so important, because kind of think about it. I go back and remember the story, like, we used to have a fish tank, and one of my friends, she was a deep sea diver, and she would bring back, oh, you know what, the kids are going to love this. So she would bring a hermit crab, and she would bring a small fish or a little snail, and just exotic little creatures from the ocean bed. And what would happen was that, like, if we did not clean out, no matter how much beautiful ornaments or trees and, like, big aquarium you may have, and saltwater aquariums are very hard to maintain anyway. And yet, if you don't change the water out, if you don't keep the pH, if you don't keep it right, and you'll find that all those creatures are going to die.
Yeah.
And it's we as human beings are very much similar to that. So just kind of moving the story a little bit forward, what happened was that we had a power outage and something happened in there, not only like, in the oxygen, because there's always that filter and that oxygen is being put through, because we had quite a few creatures in there, the environment did become dirty and we lost a lot of them. So it again goes back to saying and talking about our environment that we usually don't give much attention to. So what a good way of bringing attention to that. And one of the other things I want to ask you, that as you transitioned, as you got over your PTSD, what are you doing right now that keeps you in the flow?
Oh man. One of the other things, and I'll back up just a little bit, think outside the box. We built this little comfort zone around us. We're creatures of habit, and we trap ourselves in that box. And I started looking outside the box. I started trying some things that I never ever dreamed of doing, and I still do a lot of them today. Meditation. I teach a class now. When I ask people if they do meditation, they all kind of look at me like, no, are you kidding me? These are all a bunch of macho guys. And then I point out to them some of the techniques they use for stress relief at work, things that I used to do and that we've been trained to do. And I'm saying, hey, that's meditation, guys. Come on. So I love meditation, and music is a form of meditation. So I love putting on the headphones and just kind of getting into a song, and depending on my mood, which genre it is. So those are kind of stress relief. Actually, physical activity. I used to run 4 miles every other day because I was not going to let some young punk beat me in a foot chase. And or if I got in a fight, and I got in a lot of foot chases and fights over my career, I was not going to lose. And so exercise is also can be a form of meditation. They call it getting into the zone, or the zen of running, or the zen of whatever. So those are all things that I've done. Massage is an awesome way if you go in with the right mode and let it go as you get massaged. That's a form of meditation also. Because I don't know if you've ever gotten a massage, but how many people go in and they suddenly wake up at the end and go, oh, wow, they were out. And those are all small things that can be done by anybody. Stress relief, or meditation, or whatever you want to call it. Those are small little things that I've done, and I still do to this day on a regular basis, just to maintain me and where I'm at.
No, absolutely. So share with us the book that you've written, how people can reach out to you, and any parting thoughts that you may have.
Yeah, I have a website, glenwilliamspublicspeaker.com, and they can reach out to me on that. I haven't got my book put up on that yet, but I'm working on that. I'm technologically challenged, so I'm learning. And that's an easy way. They can Google me and reach me. In the email is info@glenwilliamspublicspeaker.com. And what I do now is I actually travel around and I teach police departments on communication and relationships so that I can help reduce PTSD, divorce, and suicide.
Oh, that's fantastic. And can you, so many times people don't realize they have PTSD. Can you share a few symptoms of that,
Yeah.
and how to talk about it and what they could do about it?
It's interesting. My son was actually blown up in Afghanistan. He lived, but 35 surgeries and 3 years so he could sort of walk again. And he was 20 years old at the time. And he and I talk a lot about PTSD. And one of the discussions we had was I said one day to him, I said, dude, you've got it way worse than me. And then we got talking about it. And yeah, he was in 3 firefights a day, almost blown up twice. Finally did end up getting blown up.
Thank you for his services and allowing your son to protect our country.
Thank you.
How's he doing now?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's still emotional to me. I'll never forget that day, August 7th, that I got that call. But, then 20 years for me with, 40 or 50-foot chases and fights and facing down weapons and, like I said, having a car driven at me, trying to run me down and those type of things. We both got PTSD. But then you look at the housewife up the street who's had her dog for 12 years and the dog gets out. She's trying to catch the dog and he gets hit by a car in front of her. Now she's got PTSD. So whose is worse?
Mm-hmm.
The instigating event is much more dramatic on my son's side and a little bit more on mine than on hers, but the PTSD is the same. The end result is the same. Doesn't matter what your experience is or what creates it. Symptoms. For my son, it's much more pronounced. He goes into a fight or flight, and he'll either turn towards something if there's something that triggers it, and his heart rate will accelerate and he'll start going up. He'll actually start breaking out into heavy sweat. I do that occasionally also. And then the other reaction is get out of the situation and leave. And I know for me, I was having nightmares probably 3 or 4, 5 times a month. And now after opening up and talking about things, I have nightmares maybe once or twice a year.
So the key is, from what I'm hearing from you, is that acknowledge it, become aware of it, what's going on, and it's okay. It doesn't matter what your experience is.
Yeah, it's okay.
The end result is the same. And it's okay to ask for help, because we all, I don't know about you, Glenn, but I'm full of flaws, and it's okay to open yourself, because if you don't open yourself for help, you cannot heal. So it's okay. And it's important to heal so that you can continue living the life you were meant to be living and helping others, because you never know, how your story can become a survival guide for somebody else, or it can be a teaching moment for someone. So as we talk about accountability, it's important that you take that accountability for your own life and live the life that you were meant to be, and be happy and be joyful. So thank you for sharing all the nuggets with us, Glenn, and we wish you the best in your teaching and your next endeavors.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to not just survive, but to live the life you deserve.
Well, listeners, thank you so much for your support, because without your support, the show would not be possible. Today is Giving Tuesday, so definitely get out there and give back, help people out, and especially during these time of holidays and beyond that. Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Jason. Be powerful, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, Divya.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.